Hey, so, got a new tenor drum. Well, this one's actually vintage. It's a 1970s Slingerland tenor drum. Kind of matches my bass drum kind of nicely. But those heads, oh, they just sound awful. I'm not happy with those. So today I'm going to go through the process of changing out the heads, and you're along for the ride. So you got a new drum, or it's a new season, and those heads don't sound right. Today, I'm going to talk about how to replace a drum head on a tenor or bass. To start off with, let's list out the things we're going to need. Drum, new heads, and also a drum key. This is basic equipment we need to at least take the old heads off and put the new ones on. So let's get the drum on a stable surface, either the table or the floor, and get these old heads off. So now we have our drum on the floor or a stable surface. This particular drum, the lugs only screw from one end. So this will allow us to take both heads off simultaneously. Other drums, the lugs unscrew from top and bottom. So be sure to identify your drum type before unscrewing. Just makes life a little easier. So to begin, I'm going to undo each one of these lugs all the way around. And notice on this drum, as I said, it is loosening both this top head and the bottom head at the same time. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the old head off and I've got this new head on, okay? And this has got a baffling ring built into it. So it should improve the sound that comes out of this drum. Now, to tighten these rods, this particular drum, each one has a claw that needs to ensure that it lines up with your tightening rod and the rim. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I'm going to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm taking my claw, I'm lining it up on the rim, keeping this straight, making sure this one's aligned. And once I'm happy with a basic alignment, I know it doesn't look straight on camera, I begin to tighten it down, making sure it's just biting nicely into the screw end of the claw. Taking my time, making sure it's right, lining everything up, top and bottom, and begin screwing it down. Now I've gone ahead and done several other lugs on this drum already, just because it's such a time-consuming activity, but so worth it in the end. Newer drums or different drums, you may not have such a difficult time. Again, this one's 1970, so it's very old, and it just takes a little bit more TLC to get it going. Now some of these lugs I have put on some lubricant, just a little bit to help them turn, because they are so old and rusty. You might want to do the same. I find just a little bit of gun oil. Gun oil is great. It helps clean and lubricate. There we go, that's kind of tightened down nicely. Continue working on this one here. I had already started this one, but as you can see, it's not as tight. And just kind of working it down, making sure everything's lined up. Okay, so now we have new heads on this drum. Now, several things to note on tenor drums is, and with bass drums too, anything with a wooden rim that the head sits on, make sure it's smooth. Unfortunately, the footage didn't come out on this video, so I'm having to tell you again now. But where the head sits on the shell, take a look at that rim, take a look at that edge, make sure it's smooth. Wipe out any trash that might be on there, okay? Take the time to make sure that's smooth. If you feel confident, get some fine grit sandpaper and just make sure that that edge is smooth. This will help the head sit flush on the drum. Wipe out any dust that might be out in there, wipe out any dirt that might be in there. Take the time, especially on these drums that everything comes apart, take the time to go over your drum maintenance. You know, oil down the edges, clean out the dust, clean out the dirt and debris, lubricate any squeaky wheels that might be on the drum, and you will improve the drum's longevity for years to come. Also, a good thing to note, when putting your rims on, when putting your heads on, before tightening everything down, make sure you know where your drum hook is. Excuse the poor audio, my voice bouncing off the drum head. Ensure that your drum hook is facing your body. If it needs to be in a certain place, make sure that happens. But also the sound hole. And what do I mean by sound hole? This is the sound hole right here. The sound is actually projected out of here and facing this away from your body. So let's imagine the drum is hooked to me right here. My sound hole is back here, out, allowing that sound to project better. If the sound hole is towards you, that's going to limit the amount of sound coming out of the drum. So just things to note and take into consideration. Also, the logo. It's a very little thing, but some people like to see the logo facing them so they can read it, or facing the crowd. So make sure that all your drums are in unison with each other on all these settings. Alright, so now we have our drum head on our drum, and we've tightened it down slightly. The best way to tighten it down, and at the moment these are just finger tight, the best way to tighten it down is to start at one location and then continue in a star type pattern. Okay? Going across the drum to the next lug. All the way around until we're happy with the tuning. And then check the tuning of your drum. And repeat that process all the way along the drum. Now, there's lots of conversations about tuning a drum and if it even matters nowadays with the newer heads, but I always like to follow the traditional method of the star pattern. Let's just make sure that it kind of rocks that drum head and rim into place properly, and so you're not, tightening down one side too much, then having to force it all the way around the rest of the way. I like to start at one end and then rock down the other side, and then rock down one side and then the other side, and so on. And so it helps seat that drum head correctly. Alright, so here's my tenor. What do you think? I think it looks a lot better. It matches my bass drum now tremendously, and the sound is better. I still have a little bit of overtone ringing. I can adjust that by changing the tension on my top or bottom heads, making sure I don't have any double toning going on. Going around with the drum dial, like in my previous video, going through and making sure that all these zones are correct. These heads are stretching, so they are going to change throughout the tuning process. There will be cracking. And one of the things I like to do with tenor drums and bass drums is what I call drum CPR. Now with that, you're pressing down on the head, just gently, just to help it stretch and crack. And you'll find that the head seats slightly better, and then you can tighten again those lugs. But there we go, a much better sounding drum already. This I will be happy with in solo competitions. Alright, the drum's in tune. I think it's going to sound great come competition time. Our bass drum competition is well underway. If you don't know about it, check out my Facebook link down here. It takes me right to the Facebook page and gives you all the rules for the bass drum giveaway competition. Yes, I'm going to be at a game soon. The latest update is it's still on, so I'm thankful for that. I hope to see a lot of you wearing my merchandise around the games, and you too could win a bass drum. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody. Stay safe. Have a great 2021, and I'll see you next time.